Breaking news. A tense standoff between China and the Philippines has erupted in the South China Sea. A Chinese Coast Guard vessel confronted a Philippine warship, but the crew stood firm. In Manila, emergency briefings were called at dawn. In Beijing, officials scrambled to respond. Two ships locked in a high-stakes stare-down near the Spratly Islands. Social media exploded with video clips. Sirens wailing, water cannons poised. The world wondered, could this confrontation spiral into something bigger? The Spratly Islands are more than just tiny specks on a map. They sit at the heart of the South China Sea, rich in fish, vital for shipping, and possibly oil and gas. Control here means influence over one of the world's busiest maritime highways. China, the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Taiwan, and Brunei all claim parts of the Spratlys. Beijing's artificial islands have raised fears of a permanent power grab. Every standoff here is a reminder. The struggle for control is far from over. The incident began just after sunrise, as the Philippine Navy's BRP Gregorio del Pilar patrolled near 2nd Thomas Shoal, a shallow reef in the eastern Spratlys. The crew was alert, eyes scanning the misty horizon. They knew Chinese vessels had been shadowing them for days. Tensions simmered as both sides maintained radio silence, each waiting for the other to make a move. Suddenly, a large Chinese Coast Guard ship appeared. It loomed on radar first, then emerged from the haze, white hull gleaming, red flag fluttering. The Chinese vessel accelerated, cutting across the Philippine warship's planned route. A tense voice crackled over the radio, "You are in Chinese waters. Leave immediately." The message was clear, the tone unmistakably threatening. The Philippine captain ordered his crew to hold course. "Remain steady, do not provoke," he instructed. The ship's engines rumbled as the crew braced for possible impact. Navigation alarms blared as the Chinese vessel drew closer, less than 100 meters away, a dangerously close distance at sea. For long minutes, the two ships moved in parallel, the water between them churning with uncertainty. The standoff was underway, and neither side was willing to back down. The Chinese ship began to circle, trying to box in the BRP Gregorio del Pilar. Its loudspeakers blared new warnings. "Turn back now or face consequences!" The Philippine crew stayed calm. Officers scanned monitors and shouted orders. Deckhands gripped railings, eyes fixed on the approaching hull. Then, the Chinese vessel unleashed its water cannon, sending a powerful jet arcing toward the Philippine ship. Seawater hammered the deck and windows. The Filipino sailors ducked but did not retreat. The captain steadied his voice. "Maintain position. Do not engage. Document everything." Crew members snapped photos and recorded video, determined to capture evidence of the aggression. The standoff lasted more than an hour. At times, the ships were so close that voices could be heard over the roar of engines. "We will not leave," the Philippine captain radioed back. "This is our territory." The Chinese ship hesitated, circled one more time, then finally pulled back, retreating toward the open sea. Relief flooded the BRP Gregorio del Pilar, but the message was clear. China's intimidation had failed to move the Philippine crew. The incident was over, but its impact was just beginning. As the news broke, voices from the Philippine warship told their story. "We were scared, yes, but we would not run," said Petty Officer Ramos, wiping salt water from his face. "We have families back home counting on us." Another crew member, Ensign Cruz, described the tension. "The Chinese were aggressive. They shouted, they tried to block us, but we held our ground." Radio logs later revealed the sharp exchanges. One Chinese officer repeatedly insisted, "You are violating Chinese sovereignty." The Philippine captain replied, "We are in the West Philippine Sea, in accordance with international law." The back and forth crackled with tension, each side refusing to give way. On shore, Filipino officials praised the crew's resolve. "Our Navy acted with courage and discipline," said Defense Secretary Emil Lorenzo. "China's tactics will not force us to abandon our rights." President Maria Robles issued a televised statement. "We will protect our sovereignty, whatever the cost." Meanwhile, China released a brief statement accusing the Philippines of provocative actions, but offered no evidence. Around the world, diplomats and military analysts studied every word and image, searching for clues about what might come next. The standoff instantly drew global attention. In Washington, the State Department condemned China's, dangerous and destabilizing behavior. A U.S. spokesperson declared, "Freedom of navigation in the South China Sea is not negotiable." The European Union and Japan also called for restraint, urging China to respect international law. Experts on maritime security warned that the incident highlighted growing risks in the region. Dr. Samantha Lee, a regional security analyst, put it plainly, "These close encounters are happening more often. One mistake could trigger a conflict that no one wants." The United Nations called for dialogue and peaceful resolution, but acknowledged the deepening divide. Filipino communities overseas rallied in support, and social media campaigns used the hashtag #StandWithThePhilippines. In Manila, protesters gathered outside the Chinese embassy, waving flags and holding signs that read, "Respect our seas." Even in China, some citizens questioned the government's aggressive tactics, worried about rising tensions. The standoff had not only made headlines, it had also shifted international opinion. Sympathy for the Philippines surged, and calls for a united regional response grew louder. For the Philippines, the incident was a test, and honestly, a victory of sorts. Their navy had stood firm against a much larger power. Rear Admiral Santos summed it up, "We showed the world that we will not be bullied." The encounter boosted morale and national pride, and it also strengthened the government's resolve to defend its claims, no matter the cost. China, however, faced more complicated questions. Its show of force had failed to intimidate. Instead, it had drawn global criticism and renewed scrutiny of its South China Sea policies. Professor Zhang Wei, a Chinese academic speaking anonymously, remarked, "This kind of behavior isolates China. It does not help our position." The incident also raised worries about escalation. What if a future encounter turned violent? A United Nations envoy warned, "Both sides need to rethink their approach. The risks are too great." Yet for now, the Philippines had gained both sympathy and support from many countries. The message was clear. Standing up to bullying worked, at least this time. The balance of power in the South China Sea had shifted, if only slightly. International law is clear. The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, recognizes the Philippines' rights in the area where the incident occurred. Back in 2016, an international tribunal ruled against China's sweeping claims. Yet, on the water might often seems to trump right. This latest standoff tested both the rules and the resolve of the international community. The Philippines is not alone in its struggle. Vietnam, Malaysia, and others have faced similar confrontations with China. As a Vietnamese diplomat put it, "We are all watching closely. If China can bully one country, it can bully us all." The incident may push Southeast Asian nations to cooperate more closely, sharing information and strategies. For China, the dilemma is real. Aggressive tactics may secure short-term gains, but risk long-term isolation. An Australian analyst put it this way, "International opinion matters. China cannot afford to alienate its neighbors or key trading partners. The question now is whether Beijing will adjust its approach or double down. The rules of the sea are being tested. The world is watching to see who will uphold them and who will break them." In the end, China's latest attempt at intimidation did not work as planned. The Philippine crew stood their ground, refusing to be cowed or pushed aside. Their courage captured the world's imagination. The ship's captain said, "We did not yield. We defended our rights." The aftermath has seen a rallying of support for the Philippines. Allies have promised more patrols, more aid, and stronger diplomatic backing. Within the Philippines, calls for greater investment in naval and Coast Guard capabilities have grown. As one senator put it, "This is our wake-up call. We must be ready for whatever comes next." China now faces a critical choice. Will it continue its aggressive tactics, risking further backlash? Or will it seek a new approach, one that respects its neighbors and international law? The answer will shape the future of the South China Sea and the peace of the region. For now, one thing is certain: bullying backfired. The world saw the Philippines stand tall, and many are now ready to stand with them.